Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Another fantastic interview. And this interview is so timely because I've got Kristen Donnelly with me. Kristen is a woman who is thinking a lot about diversity and equality. And these are words that are so bunted around, and for some people in the world that sounds like woke and bullshit, and the other camp and the other people are saying, well, actually look around and let's talk about these problems here, and let's not get distracted by maybe political opinions. But these are two distinct camps in this world. And in some countries, they are a bit more marked than others. So how the hell can we bring such often opposite and often toxic people because of their ingrained opinions? How can we bring them together onto the table? So this would be maybe the key solution for us to get out of a lot of shit in this world. So today I've got Kristen with me. Kristen, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor.
And indeed, this is our take two. The universe had in the past tried to not get us to talk. And I'm so pleased that both Kristen and I are a bit stubborn when it comes to that. So here we are finally doing this interview.
Indeed.
Kristen, I mean, it is, how did you become interested in diversity and equality? I mean, you're not waking up one day when you're 6 and think, hey, you know what? One day I'll do a TED talk, and one day I will, I'll go out there and make a different world. Nah. How did it all
Well,
come
ironically,
about?
I started telling people that when I grew up, I wanted to change the world when I was around 7.
I was a year out. Sorry.
That's the earliest my family can remember me saying that. But in a way, I've been raised to always be thinking of other people. And when you have that kind of posture, when your family has that posture of what is our impact on others around us, how do our, there's a couple different ways it can go. One, you have like, we always have to perform for the Joneses, and it can get really, really toxic. I'm lucky that while my family was very clear, like my maiden name is Nielsen, and like I was raised to be a Nielsen, and there are expectations with that name, what really came through more than anything else is that I should leave this planet better than I found it. I should leave every interaction with people better than I found them. That my purpose of being on the planet is to progress that arc of justice that is bending ever so slowly. And so from a young age, my family was very outward focused. When I was 7, my parents bought a company in a significantly under-resourced neighborhood in the American city of Philadelphia, with the entire expressed intent of creating jobs for people who are traditionally, quote unquote, unemployable. So folks just out of the penal system, folks in halfway houses. The deal to work for our company, and I'm now the co-owner with my brother, we're on to the second generation. The deal is that there's always at least one position in the building where all you have to do to work there is show up sober every day and on time. And we will teach you everything else you need to know. Our deep belief is that people make decisions, but more often they have decisions made for them. And everybody deserves as many chances as they want to change the narrative caused by that combination of choices. And so from a young age, not only was I shaped by this company and the stories of the people that worked with us and the reality that, my friends in the suburbs were getting cars for their 16th birthdays. And I was deeply and intimately, constantly aware of the privilege of that. My brother and I say all the time in American baseball terms, we were born on third base and we know it. And so our job is to always make sure to do the work to get other people on to base. So which would work with cricket too, for anyone, like the bases still work in cricket or in rounders. And so it's been a natural progression. So I was raised in a faith system that definitely also talks about outwardly focused acts. And so that contributed to it. And then I was a youth worker for a long time, and you can't work with teenagers without realizing that they are different and passionate, and that judging them gets you nowhere and loving them gets you everywhere. And then that fed into a training as a social worker, which fed into a Ph.D. in sociology, where I learned just really basic, this is how humans work without moral judgment. Let's strip back all that stuff. This is just how people work. And if we truly understood, this is why folks tick, this is how they work together in community, this is how they do what they do, and strip away our moral judgments upon their decisions, everything gets a little bit easier to understand. And so it was this kind of very natural progression into when I was thinking about how I could best use my gifts and talents to further the mission statement of our company, which is to impact lives and create holistic wealth. How could I do that? Is I could talk and offer trainings around the idea that every human is a human, different people are different, and we've got to ask more questions and make less assumptions.
Wow. Wow. What an upbringing. What a beautiful altruistic and thinking outside of the square upbringing. When was your company founded?
1991.
Okay. These were not necessarily straightforward times. And Philadelphia, from memory at that time, was pretty much a deprived inner city kind of place, was it not?
It was. And there's huge sections of the city that now still are. And we are in historically like one of the most historically under-resourced and ignored neighborhoods.
Right.
That has been that way since before the race riots of the 60s. And it used to be where all the textiles were made. And when the textile factories all left, nothing else came in to replace them. So it's been really under-resourced, low employment opportunities, things like that. And so we are intentionally here.
What is your company providing?
So it's multiple divisions, excuse me, but the two that are located in Philadelphia that are the most, regular in a way, one of them makes dyes and colorants, and we provide for the pharmaceutical industry. For instance, we make the stain that diagnoses cancer. One of the key stains in the diagnosis of cancer, for anyone who knows histology, we make hematoxylin. And then our other company makes high-grade epoxies that, like, for instance, fix pipes on submarines when they burst and they're underwater. We make like a 2-part epoxy that you can fix the pipe with so that the submarine doesn't have to surface and put them in danger. So it's really niche stuff. It's not anything that like anyone else makes. My dad just bought this failing chemical company in 91 and turned it with a partner, turned it into kind of the multi-divisional, multinational thing we've got now, where we all do different things. Some of us are manufacturing. I run an empathy education and training division, but everything is drawn together by that mission statement of impacting lives and creating holistic wealth.
And obviously, it is financially lucrative. It is.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Yeah.
You're doing okay through what now? If you think 1991, you have had so many upheavals in the United States, the 2008 financial crisis. You've had all that happening here. And you would normally say, I mean, how many business went either bankrupt or had to lay off most of their staff, etc. So you weathered all those storms by actually focusing on diversity, equality. So let me put an educated guess out there. You are helping people or your co-workers, you're the people who are employed, you're helping those people on a level that is so valuable to them that they will stick by you, stand by you through thick and thin. Is that fair to say?
We certainly hope so. And we have a lot of people who have been here for over 10 years. We've never had a financial layoff in our over 30-year history, and I don't think we ever will. And we're very blessed that the particular products that we make, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what recession happens or that COVID hits, everybody gets cancer and needs the cancer screening dyes. We make the dye that diagnoses glaucoma, for instance, and everybody has to have their eyes checked. So we've got some niche products that keep us a little bit safe. But more than anything, my brother and my dad would tell you, all the economic stuff. We're pretty recession proof, et cetera, et cetera. But I like to think that the universe has rewarded us just a little bit for treating people like people and for giving them a leg up. Now, we have made a ton of mistakes, and my brother and I have learned a lot of the ways that my dad did and did not do things when he was a solopreneur for a lot of years. Yeah. I'm not saying we are perfect by any means. Good Lord. My employees outside the door, I could parade them in here and they could all tell you the ways that we have screwed up. But at every point, what we try to do is center the humanity of the person in front of us, whether that's our customer, whether that's our employee, whether that's the person on the street who keeps parking in the wrong spot. What we try to do as a family and as a leadership team is center the humanity of the person in front of us. And we found that if we do that as a discipline, if you remember that the person in front of you is a person, it becomes a lot harder to become a complete and utter asshole to them. And it becomes a lot easier to seek solutions rather than animosity.
It's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I'm just trying to compare that with the organization in which I'm working now. And I have to say that on paper, there are similar values. They're beautifully crafted. They're beautifully displayed on walls. And when I then look at the reality, how people are worked into the ground due to the pressures onto our system, the healthcare system here, I have to say, bloody hell, burnout is either just one working day away from many people, or people are in the middle of it. So how do you circumnavigate such things? I mean, you're lucky that some of your products are recession proof, but what would you advise other people maybe in a position of certain power where they have to look after a team and the stresses are mounting and they themselves are uncertain if there's a paycheck in a month or 2 months' time? That's not a healthy environment. That's a lot of pressure. And often enough, there's anger, frustration, resentment that is coming out. How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, I will say that if you are somebody in charge of other people and they are checking their email at 10 o'clock at night and they are sacrificing family time for your organization, you need to take a really hard look in the mirror and decide why you think that your time is more valuable than theirs. And why is your company more valuable than them as a person? And what changes can you make as a leader to keep work at work as much as possible? Now, there are some industries where that doesn't happen, like PR or entertainment or medicine. But I don't buy for a second that there's not creative solutions out there, that there's not ways to work with the individual person. For instance, my brother and I have a absolute, I am sure some of our employees have their company emails on their personal phones, but we intentionally do not provide corporate phones because we don't expect that any of our employees should have to use their phones after hours. They shouldn't have to check their email. They should not be calling customers. That is our job. That is our job. We signed up for this. You signed up for your family. And we want to make sure that you can take care of your family. And it is our job as owners to create an environment in which you can be the best person holistically that you can be, which means we want you to show up here and give us as much as you can give us every day. Some days it's going to be 110%. Other days, let's be honest, it's going to be 40% because there's shit happening. But we want you to show up as often as possible. We want you to show up with your full self every day, whatever that means. Yeah. And if we are overworking you, that is our fault and we need to know that. Or you haven't told us that you're answering emails at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and so I can't solve that problem. Nice. For most, so there has to be communication so that we can come up with creative solutions. Now, I was actually just talking to somebody who is literally, they're in entertainment and they're a talent agent. There is no time boundary that's really allowed. So one of the things that we talked about them doing, for instance, is saying like, okay, well, then that means like you don't have to work in the office more than 2 days a week.
Right.
And so if you have a half an hour in the middle of the day and you can take a walk or take a swim or do something like personal, you can do that. We can renegotiate our time. The way that we currently think about an 8 to 4:30 job was set up for the Industrial Revolution, where you could not, and still manufacturers, like my folks couldn't work from home in COVID. They can't make dye in their living room.
Correct.
Like, so it's set up for manufacturing and for agriculture. Very few jobs are the way that they were in 1912. And I think, I mean, if for no other reason than we now have penicillin and liquid soap, I think we can get a little creative and innovative because the world's a little bit different. But some of this is getting rid of really specific corporate policies. I respect that a lot of my HR colleagues will say, write everything down to the letter. I hate that. Our HR policies here are really vague because every person is a person. And stuff may need to be flexible. We don't have anybody here right now caring for an elderly parent. But once we do, I mean, in the building, we do on our team in general, but we don't have anybody here caring for an elderly parent. But we have a lot of folks caring for kids. And so if I said I have a policy that you only get so much time off a month for caring for attending your child's, doctor's appointments, and I wrote that down, what would that be for the people who are caring for their spouses or for their parents? And the caregiver relationship is just as important. People are people.
True. I mean, I love the focus that you put onto the individual. At the same token, there must be limits somewhere where you are saying, well, actually, you are paid for 40 hours or whatever your contract is, or if it is per rata of whatever you are achieving.
Oh, for sure.
So
and on
how
that
do you
front,
draw these boundaries?
Oh, for sure. So what we found is that if you treat people like people, they're going to show up for you like employees.
Exactly.
And so you don't have to draw quite as many boundaries because they draw them for themselves. This is the same thing where like data has shown you don't give people unlimited PTO because they'll never take it. The ones that are worth your time, PTO? The ones that you want, paid time off.
Right.
So like there's a movement in the UK and America to just tell people you can take as many vacation days as you want. And there's a lot of data that says it's actually terrible because the people who you want to take the vacation days don't take any at all and burn themselves out. And the people that you should fire anyway are taking all of the time and screwing the team. So it's not actually doing what you want it to do.
Oh, excellent.
People need boundaries and they'll create them for themselves if they have to. So part of my thing is, and I've never worked in the public sector, I should say that. And a lot of my advice may not work in union environments. So there's limits to all advice, but in a small business, which to me, well, according to the United States definition is anything under 250 employees. And that's 97% of American businesses are small businesses. So if you, as the owner, if you manage 75 people, can you sit down and have directly 75 people? No, but I think each person should only be managing about 4 people at a time, realistically. So you can sit down with them and say, what does it look like for like, how many sick days? Do you have rheumatoid arthritis and you need to get an infusion every month? Okay, well then I don't want to charge you sick days because you'll be out of them by January. So how do we reformat this? How do we make sure that your body and your soul can work here? And I'm not punishing you for a disease you can't control.
Wow.
If your kid needs to be picked up at 5 o'clock at night, which means that you can't work to 5:30. Okay, cool. But I still need you to make this 40 hours. So let's figure out a different way. Can you give me 3 days a week where somebody else picks them up? And then those other 2 days you come in early? Or could you give me some email time on a Saturday and we make it work that way? Or sometimes we just decide that 40 hours a week, most office workers don't need 40 hours a week to get their job done. And we switch to merit-based gradients instead of hour-based gradients. Here's your task. When are you getting that done? Can we have a weekly check-in meeting to see where you are in all of those things? And then I don't care what hours you work, because you're getting stuff done and you are internally motivated, because I have made sure to hire somebody who believes in my vision, has ethics and characters of themselves, and will motivate themselves if I treat them with the dignity and inherent worth that they are granted by the fact that they are humans. Does it work every time? Absolutely not. Do you still have to fire people because they lie, or it didn't work out, or they're the wrong culture? Totally. Do we all need to fire people quicker than we do? Yes. We go back to a lot around here, a Brene Brown quote, that clear communication is kind communication. And one of my driving factors as an owner, as a boss, as a human, as a wife, is to be kind. And so lots of people say, like, oh, you're a straight shooter and that's really great. I'm like, but everybody should be. The world is literally and metaphorically on fire. Why are we playing games with people? Tell them what you need, ask them what they need, and go from there.
Absolutely. But for that, you need clarity. For that, you need to actually sit down and think far wider than many entrepreneurs and many bosses actually do. They are focusing too much on either numbers or certain subsectors, sub things, rather than standing back and looking at the whole of the business. They certainly, most leaders don't stand back and look at the whole of themselves.
Oh, no, rarely, because that's tiring, hard, and exhausting.
But that is where the work should start. That 100%. Is because then once you actually develop the empathy and the understanding for yourself, once you've got that insight, then you actually realize, maybe that person there who at the moment is going through X, Y, and Z you might just deal differently with this person than rather say, hey, come on, man, you're 2 minutes late. What the fuck? Get your ass in the gear. So I 100% am convinced that every good leadership starts with putting good habits into yourself, into your own life, and holding yourself accountable.
Completely agree.
And that's because if you look at the for example, entrepreneurs, the suicide rate amongst entrepreneurs is 4 times as high as a matched cohort out of the normal population. Okay, so that's not healthy. So for all of those leaders out there, and you know, I'm one of them in my job, in here by doing a show, all that kind of thing. Yes, we want to achieve things. Yes, but at which price? At which price? Walking over the broken broken bits of your relationships, of your dreams. Oh God, it's just we are doing stupid things as humans. How have you addressed those things in yourself? Because inevitably there has been trauma, there has been shit happening in your life. How are you looking after yourself in order to be a good
terribly
leader?
Most days, but I'm trying to be better. I've been in and out of therapy since I was 11, which helps a lot. I've been given a lot of tools to kind of know what's happening in me, because that's really what therapy is learning how to listen to yourself and learning how to read your own body and soul signals. And so I've been in and out of various therapeutic relationships. I have an incredible team in my division, which is called Abbey Research. I have 2 particular people that work with me, Aaron and Eleanor, who also happen to be 2 of my best friends. And they mind me. And if they are concerned, they are not shy about voicing it. My husband is the same way. My mother is the same way. I outsource my mental health because I will work myself into the ground very quickly. And so I have learned in my nearly 40 years of life that it is better for me to give other people the stop sign and to trust them when they say I need to stop, that I need to stop. And so there's that.
How cool is that?
I also practice Pilates, which is really my favorite form of movement. I read a lot. I play video games. I travel as much as I can. I eat food that brings me joy and not food that someone tells me I shouldn't eat. And at all times, I try to wake up every day and ask myself the question, what would make me happy today? And I chase that, because most of the days, what would make me happy is serving other people. What would make me happy is landing a talk where I get to share these ideas with a lot of people. What would make me happy is making a sale that means we can provide for our folks, because my job is my passion, and that works for me. But what would spark joy? And how do I realize, we talked a little while ago about the burnout and the boundaries, and something I didn't say, but that connects with this, is that a huge part of practicing empathy, so asking more questions and making less assumptions, is learning what you can and cannot control. And then making decisions accordingly. So as a leader, I cannot control the attitude, mood, emotions, or life of anyone who works for me. Can't. All I can control is the environment I create for them when they walk in this door. Do they know that they're safe, listened to, and trusted? Because fundamentally, every human wants to be seen, heard, and understood. That's what they want. At our core, if you don't want those things, there is some sort of emotional or neurodivergence that is outside of the realm of what we understand the rest of humanity to be. You're a sociopath or something of the like. I hate the word normal, so I try really hard not to use it. But we all crave to be seen, heard, and understood. And so every day I try my best to see, hear, and understand myself. And I try to allow other people to see, hear, and understand me as well, which is work. And like, Stefan, I'll be honest, there's days I get up and I'm like, I'm not doing the work today. Today I'm staying in my pajamas and I'm playing Stardew Valley and I'm going to be crabby to everybody. But part of the practice of clear communication and empathy is looking at my husband and saying, I don't want a human today. And he's like, okay.
Brilliant. For that,
and I should also say, though, in the middle of all that, I don't have kids or pets or plants. So part of my ability to the work that I'm doing is the decision to not have to keep anything alive but me. If you've made other decisions and you have to keep other things alive, your life will look a lot different than mine.
Still, whilst you're right, there's very much, you are black and white in some aspects, and maybe not all lessons can be transferred. The principles, however, remain the same. I'm a man who quite happily loads everything into the day, and more, bring it on. I can't take it. I what is the old saying? I grow under pressure. That all those kind of macho. Come on, and that is me. That is a big part of me. And I am like that. Give me pressure and chaos, and typically I grow into it. I take the challenge, and we're gonna sort that shit out. And I'm proud of that ability. But will that work every day? Hell no. So I've lived a life of boom and bust, and I nowadays recognize that so much more than in the past. And it's little things. My family was just overseas. They are full of jet lag, so they're awake now at 1 o'clock, and they're quiet, but they still. I'm with my PTSD. I hear everything, so my nights at the moment are shit. And I therefore last night I came home from work. It was 5:30, 6, and I went to bed and watched mindless telly instead of doing anything else. I just looked after myself and just took time out, and it didn't matter. I was just waiting for the sun to set that I actually can go to bed, to actually switch everything off and go to sleep. Didn't matter that it was 7 o'clock in the evening. Okay, so it is sometimes you really have to put the brakes on and look after yourself, truly. And if that does not conform to any norm, to any of your desires to be always like a Coca-Cola advertisement, young, fit, sexy, and if I just have one more, whatever you take, and then I'm going to be full of energy back out there. I'm sorry, guys, that bullshit does not work. Okay, there are some days when you're naturally like that. Take them as a gift. There are other days when you're in the serene zone. Take that as the bigger gift and get used to a word called JOMO, the joy of missing out, the joy of actually saying, you know what, everyone else, go home now because I need that time for myself. JOMO. Maybe a principle that we can spread and sprinkle a bit out there. It's actually a principle out from investments, because if you're investing in property, you're investing in crypto. There's so many deals you could do. But actually, no, that just makes you sick. No, there's the joy of missing out, of actually, no, you know what? I'm actually quite happy. So maybe, how can we foster that? How can we foster a more self-focused, in a positive way, self-focused life amongst entrepreneurs in business? How would you try to encourage that in others?
So one of the answers for me always is to think of context. So, and to kind of take it back and ask more questions. So why are we so afraid of stopping? Why can't we ask for help? Why can't we do these things? And what I've discovered is, especially in North America, and I think American business culture in particular, has leaked everywhere else because it is incredibly financially successful, the American model of doing business. It all goes back to a very specific theological viewpoint of the first settlers, the first conquerors of the US, called the Puritans. And they fundamentally believed that you were only a good person if you worked hard, that rest was for when you were dead, and that you had to do it alone. And this is why they ended up being incredibly financially successful, because that makes a lot of money. And sociologists have called it in the past, the Protestant work ethic and the spirit of capitalism. Max Weber did his original kind of gear on that, trying to figure out why Protestant countries were more financially stable than Catholic countries. And some of the nuances of all of that have been disproven or proven depending. But as I look around the world, the core of capitalism is that you can sleep when you're dead, that you're a good person if you work hard, and that you have to do it all alone. That's the core of capitalism. And that's the core of puritanical theology. So you have to understand that the reason it feels so wrong is that your culture has programmed you to believe these things. That we all live in capitalistic societies, and even the ones that claim to be socialist are still capitalist. And what that all kind of looks like on the planet right now is that we all have internalized that asking for help is weak on some level. You may be somebody who's super into collaboration in one area of your life, but I bet you if you really dig deep, there is one area you will never ask for help in, because you believe if you ask for help, it's a moral failure. So maybe you're super collaborative at work, but you never ask for help with your kids, because being a good parent means never asking for help, which is a lie based in the theology of a group of people that have been dead for a very long time. And we can choose to believe different things. So once you understand that you're not the crazy person, you're not weird or wrong for wanting to stop. Your body wants to stop. Yeah. Your culture has told you that you can't. So being countercultural, is hard and exhausting and intentional. You're never just going to accidentally become rested. You might accidentally become wealthy, because that can happen, but you're never going to accidentally become rested. So what you need to do is understand that any instinct that says you are only worth your output is a lie. Any message that you have onboarded that says, if I ask for help, I'm weak, is a lie. We didn't live in individual houses the way that we do now, honestly, again, until the Industrial Revolution. And the super, super wealthy people had these giant homes, but they still had a ton of people in it to help it run. So we all still fundamentally lived in community. And it really was post-World War II where we all began to bifurcate into our own individual little things. And we began to mark success as owning your own fully detached house. Well, the problem with that is that it gets a lot harder. It gets easier to hide and harder to ask for help. So if you're sitting here and you're like, yeah, but I've got this newborn kid, I can't just like go and take a nap for an hour. You're right, except you're wrong, because you should have someone in your life that you can hand the kid to for an hour. And if you don't have somebody in your life, couple questions. Do you actually not have anybody in your life? Or are you just telling yourself you don't have that person? What can you do to build a network or a community? What can you choose to get into? Whatever you are into, other humans are into it too. And there may be ways to build around you people that can help. Your instinct to put yourself last is not impressive, it's imbalanced.
Beautifully said. Wow. I lived and worked in West Africa for a while. And I remember that watching a scene where some girlfriends came together and one of them had her baby with her. And they all sat there, and there was sort of a good dozen of them in that restaurant. And that baby was cuddled and reached around and moved over there. Baby had a great time. Mum had a good hour where she didn't touch that baby. That baby was in others' hands and got carried around. And it was so beautiful to see.
And we all get like moments of that. And I think I was just in Northern Ireland with mine and my husband's family, my husband's side of the family. And we were talking about the difference between the kids that were born during COVID and the kids that weren't. Because the kids that were born before COVID are totally used to being passed around. And like they're raised by everybody. But the kids that were born during isolation are still very fearful of anybody who wasn't in their pod. And so like I go over and our elder nephews are like all over me and talking and asking questions. And our nieces that were born during COVID are very hesitant to be taken by the stranger. And so it's one of those things that like we can take lessons from a little kid in a way. If you are enculturated to trust more people, then you will do it in other ways. I was part of a church growing up that had a lot of children's programs. My parents routinely outsourced parenting to other people. They put other adults in my life to make sure that I had mentors. I went on sleepaway camp. I did all of those things that like you see suburban American kids do in the movies. But the upside of that is that I learned really quickly that people outside my family are trustworthy. And that my family might not be the only definition of family. And so if something painful is happening, I can ask questions and maybe find some healing somewhere else. So that's one of so my ultimate thing is if you are sitting here and you're listening and you just feel like a burnt out husk of a human, I would encourage you to do 3 things right now. One is to breathe. Bizarrely, breathing is one of the things we forget to do well. We will lean into like shallow breaths really quickly. What we need is deep breaths. Incorporate breathing practice into your life. I know it sounds cheeseball. I know it does. I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds silly. First thing you do in the morning is sit up in your bed, at your table, do something, put an alarm on your phone, and for 3 minutes, just take deep breaths. Start there. The next thing I'd ask you to do is drink a lot more water than you are right now. And the third thing I'd ask you to do is pick one thing every day that makes you happy and do it. You're not going to be able to control or like maybe outsource your childcare right now. You might not be able to make big sweeping decisions to completely reformat your existence, but you can breathe for 3 minutes, drink some more water, and do one thing that makes you happy. And then once you get those disciplines in place, you can do more and you can build more and you can be more intentional. And you can think about, am I working for someone else's labor right now? Or am I working for my own joy, my own fulfillment, my family's life, my whatever? Am I a cog in a capitalistic machine that's interchangeable and that no one really knows me? Or have I crafted my life to be somewhere where I matter?
And if you look at that from a purely biological point of view, what is happening in your body is that your body actually has needs. And it has all kind of needs. And a clever person put those needs into a pyramid kind of form. And you have got on the bottom, the foundation. Those are the really survival needs. That is those things that you actually have enough fluid, enough food, shelter, fire, warmth, security. The moment that these things are not in existence, then your body is already in a fight and flight mode. And often we are in this mode chronically. And with that, if you want to be at a pinnacle with the understanding of the world and all the spiritual power of a deity, yeah, my bottom, when you actually don't look after the very simple things down there. So let's look at your recommendations there. Be more hydrated. Well, guess what? That's what your body actually needs. And when you're constantly dry, there is a constant knowledge of your body. Bloody hell, here we need to look around for water. Because otherwise we're going to die. That's deeply, deeply ingrained, guys. So when we say drink 3 liters of water, that means actually drink 3 liters of water. And you might be amazed. Too many programs out there, programs in the sense of, for example, work programs that looked at the incidence of severe headaches impacting a business. They looked at what can we do, and not drugs or anything, but just behaviors. And they found that indeed exercise and hydration was the easiest thing to do and had the most bang for the buck. So those people in a big company that actually who were suffering from headaches and who followed those simple things had 10 sick days less compared with those people who were not involved in that program. 10 sick days. That's a lot of hours for an employer where this employee is backed on. So from a leadership point of view, that makes a lot of sense. From an individual point of view, do you like to have headaches? I don't. In all fairness, between you and me, I often run around with this low-grade headache where I have to say, bloody hell, have I hydrated? No, I haven't. Okay, so water. I love what you emphasized there. What was the other one? Just remind me now, I've got a mental blank.
Is breathing.
Breathing, please. And the shallow breathing, that's the adrenaline kicking in. So if we want to switch that off, take those deep breaths. And deep breaths, with that I mean, imagine that air is like water, and you're filling that vessel up, and that vessel goes sort of from here to your belly button. And if you pour water into a vessel, well, it first goes to the very bottom. It doesn't stay up here. It goes to the very bottom. So deep breaths. And with that, my tummy just came out. So what you're doing is you're stretching the vagus nerve. You're stretching the parasympathetic nervous system. You're switching off the fight and flight. So here you go. The water switches off fight and flight. The deep breathing switches off fight and flight. During the opposite of fight and flight, healing can occur. Good thoughts can come into your brain. It is a complete healthy reset that you're doing with some very simple things. So when Kristen is actually focusing on those things, which might sound corny and what the hell is she talking about? There is some good science behind that. So no two ways around it. I 100% agree. Do I do it? I do it more in response to, how shall I say that? I haven't yet ingrained it as the habit it should be. Okay. And so I'm as guilty as charged. Okay. I'm still running around some days, dry like a crisp. Bullshit. And the breathing I'm quite good in. The breathing I've mastered to a degree that I can switch off an anxiety attack with 2-3 breaths nowadays. So I'm proud there, but I'm not so proud about the other aspects. So it only shows.
Well, I just went and like one of the things I did was I bought, so in America, it's 64 ounces. That's 3 liters. So I bought a 32-ounce water bottle.
Oh, wow.
This big on Amazon. So I know I just have to drink 2 of these a day. That's
Good
it.
point.
So the other thing that I would say to do is like, what is the barrier to doing those things?
Yeah.
So like for me, I hate the taste of water unless it's ice cold. So I bought a highly rated water bottle that keeps things as ice cold as humanly possible. Cool. So I solved that problem. And then I hate having to get up and down a bunch to refill my water bottle. Amazing. Cool. So I solved those 2 problems. Instead of just saying, well, I really hate the taste of water, I went, okay, how can I solve this problem? So like I have a friend, Eleanor, I mentioned her already, who lives in Canada. And she has a real thing for like really wet socks in the winter. And used to get very, very annoyed that she would have to, and she was in and out a lot during the day for her job at the time. And so she would just like take off wet socks and leave them all over the place. And then would find that like she didn't have socks to wash. So she was complaining about it forever. And then she realized like, well, what if I just put a basket right by my door and I take off the socks right there? And then when that basket gets full, I just wash the basket. So that's what she does now. And the sock problem that was stressing her out is solved.
Isn't it?
So
It's so often like such little things that stress
tiny
you.
Little things.
Isn't it?
It's
crazy.
Tiny little things. So like what is preventing you from breathing deeply? Figure it out. What is preventing you from, I don't know, enjoying your life? What is preventing you from not doing the hobby that you love and gives you life? Like ask yourself more questions, investigate your resistances, and see how many of them can really be rewritten. Because the more you work on yourself, as we've already said, the more you'll understand other people. And the more you understand other people, the more you'll understand yourself. And it's this beautiful cyclical chrysalis towards all of us living a fuller sense of being human together.
But that comes in layers. I mean, trauma comes in layers, healing comes in layers. And
it's never happens in a straight line.
Oh shit, no. On the contrary, and sometimes those detours are actually so important. And I find in my own healing journey that the detours and that the maybe new traumas that made me stop and think, what the hell, were exposing other areas in which I had the privilege to grow. And if you look at it from that angle, rather than, oh my God, I mean, bloody hell, over the last 6 months, probably every 6 hours, something new happens where I think, what? And it is crazy. I mean, sometimes I'm just laughing. Nowadays, I'm just looking around and say, what more shit can happen in my life? And but I'm no longer getting upset about it. I'm just saying, okay, fair enough. And I often compare it with being in the ocean, and you're swimming, and there's a big wave coming towards you. You can be really, really, really angry about that wave. You can shout at that wave. You can do whatever you want. That wave doesn't care. And so seems to be fate, and so seems to be the lives that we are at the moment, that I'm certainly living. There is one shitstorm after the other, but I can't do anything about a shitstorm, but I can at least think about, how do I want to react? Listen to it. I choose how I react nowadays. There's the immediate response that I can't control, the kind of fight and flight, or the kind of what? I can't control that. That's me. But I can then control that. I can stop for a moment, take a deep breath, think, okay, what does that really mean? Yes, there's something really nasty happening out there in the world. Okay, does that really right now affect me? Do I really need to be ready to fight the saber-toothed tiger? Or is that actually, hang on, I'll take a deep breath. Yes, that shit has happened, but either it has happened somewhere out there, or the implications are not yet even known. So we often get so upset and so focused on things that have never happened, or will never actually happen and never come true. Therefore, guys, again, to come back to the stop, think for a moment, assess what's really going on, and then take action. This sequence of events is so powerful, but it's training that you need. You need to actually really, it just doesn't come naturally to you because we want to respond immediately. That's what we want to do. It's like reflexes in our lives. No. So we need to actually create this habit of actually stopping for a second before you open your mouth, thinking for a moment before you reply to that email. Maybe even not even sleeping on it before you reply to this email. That's something that I had to learn the hard way. But with that, you take back the choice. You take back the privilege, how you respond and how you show up in your own life. Are you the monkey that immediately responds in a predictable way, often with anger and resentment, to outside influences? Or are you the ringmaster in the circus who is maybe a bit more in control and controls how the whole show actually is run? Nowadays, I think I've went up the ladder from monkey to bearded lady, and I think I'm sort of now coming towards close to the ringmaster. From now and then, I take the position of ringmaster, with more or less success. But we all have got these choices, okay? You have got a choice to make every second how you respond, how you look after yourself, and therefore how you show up in your life. And we must never forget that. It is a privilege to stop and think and then take the action that you think is appropriate. Kristen, one thing I want to come back to, you said that from the age of 11 onwards, you had therapy.
Mhm.
And which means you have seen your fair share of trauma. Otherwise, obviously, you wouldn't be in therapy. So to a certain degree, I'm actually really pleased for you that things happened to you early and that you therefore had the chance to be exposed to other people who maybe know a little bit more about emotions and about human actions, interactions. At the same token, you said that this Puritan drive in us now, I'm a man, I don't need help, or I'm a woman, I can do it all. Bloody man, I'll show them. I'll do it all myself. Super mummy, super lover, super wife, super boss. Yeah, right. How can we make it normal to have power teams in which we are the dumbest people in the team? People who can guide us, help us, who are maybe a little bit further down the path. How can we introduce this culture?
By doing it? I know that sounds, I'm not cheating, I promise, but I think so much of it is just making the decision to do it. So like in the States, I know, for instance, there are lots of professional organizations that offer mentoring. So like get a mentor, start that process. If you are somebody who is parenting a child, put them in scouts or sports or theater or something and start enculturating them young that they have more than you as a parent. And figure that out. But the more you can seek out multi-generational relationships, multi-experiential relationships, the better it's going to be. I am hesitant to say be the dumbest person in the room, because I think what I'd rather say is find other people who are good at the things you're bad at and who can teach you how to value those things or who can complement your skills. And open yourself up to the fact that there's always more for you to know, that you bring things to the table that other people need to know, that your voice matters because they need your voice, but also be open to the idea that you need a lot of other voices too. And that none of us are done humaning yet. None of us know what we're doing. We're all figuring it out as we go along. And so find trusted people, whether they are a personal relationship like a mentoring or a friendship or something like that, or they're a podcast or a book, or, we have this model of emotional intelligence that we model it on a trampoline, actually. And we say that the people that you bounce with, the bouncy bit, are where you get new ideas and you try things out and you bounce around with some people. And so, like, for instance, for me, one of my biggest bouncing partners is C.S. Lewis. He died before I was born, and I would have never crossed paths with him. But his ideas about humanity and faith and community and the afterlife shape a huge amount of who I am and what I believe and what I see and how I experience the world. And so on times where I'm not sure of my faith, his works are what I return to sometimes, and that would be kind of how. There's a line from an Avett Brothers song that I quote all the time, which is decide what to be and go be it. Decide what you need and go get it. Decide what idea you want to learn more about and go do it. I think we spend so much time trying to figure out what the best strategy is for something. Do it. Do it.
Analysis paralysis. Exactly. We know that in the business world. Oh, no. I'm not sure if I'm ready. That's right. If some people
You're
ask
probably
me,
not.
Yeah, exactly. Some people ask me, well, what do I need to do to start a podcast? And I say, start a podcast.
Start one.
Exactly right.
My friend Crystal, like, her podcast is she a $25 microphone off Amazon. That's where she started.
Exactly right.
Like, just do it. Just decide what to be and go be it.
Indeed.
And acknowledging within that you're going to screw up, that you're going to make bad decisions, that you're going to yoke yourself with people who are toxic and you're going to have to learn how to walk away from them, that you're going to grow in ways that you never anticipated, that you're going to encounter joy in ways that you could have never ever dreamed of. Life is going to happen when you decide to stop letting it happen to you and start happening in it.
At the same token, 80% of success is showing up. And I've done my best interviews. Some of my best interviews were done when I was so not in the mood to show up, when I was tired, when I was by just showing up, I ended up with a smile on my face afterwards by actually saying, well, A, I showed up. B, look what came out of it. And I must say, this is something that should be just as much a principle as for you to actually admit at times that you don't show up because you deserve that break. So
sometimes you can't show up so you can show up the best the other way. It's like I said, some days you're here at 110% and some days I know you're here at 20. Exactly.
And the 20, maybe then you need to recognize, hang on, this is burnout time. No.
You should be home. If you're vomiting, please go home and work from home. Yeah.
Exactly. Touche. And that might be emotional vomiting. Okay. So
exactly.
Brilliant. Kristen, you're an amazing woman. You are.
Oh, thank you.
I love your attitude. I love your insights. But they came for sure on the basis of many mistakes that you have made. At the same token, we need to make mistakes, and we need to make it a culture that is okay to make mistakes. But don't make the same mistake 6 times, just to be sure, okay? 1 time and learn from it, for crying out loud. I think that is the point. And if we actually accept it and celebrate our successes, also celebrate our failures, do immediate debriefs and actually see, I mean, for example, I'm an anesthetist, so we work anesthetist, surgeon, and a team of nurses and technicians. And we do a list with patients, maybe an all-day list or a morning list, and then we do a debrief afterwards. And most often, because we are such close-knit teams, everything is smooth. And the only thing I say, look, thank you so much, guys, for a lovely day. That's our debrief. Or sometimes, hey, look, let's actually talk about that. I mean, a lot of things went pear-shaped. How can we improve that? Communication, open communication, and inviting everyone to bring up criticism, bring up praise, Please, I want to have both. Okay. And again, and when someone gives me praise, nowadays I'm no longer pissed off about it because I think, oh, does he normally think I'm bad that he now needs to praise me, or some bullshit core belief that, oh God, how many women can't take compliments? That kind of thing. Nowadays I say, thank you for whatever is being said. And I'll take it as a little tiny celebration there and then, where a smile creeps on my face and I say, good, okay, that's nice. These are the things where you can actually build yourself up. So if you actually do that with other people and you start creating this kind of culture that you praise a lot, that you make a point going past the cleaner and say, oh, new hair color, suits you well. Can you imagine that you make this person's day just by you doing that little thing? How nice is that? And if you create a culture like that, it will sooner or later echo back to you and will engulf you, and the whole thing will become a movement that you might have started with a little snowball, but by the time you look around, there's a big avalanche going through your enterprise. And that is, I think, that is true leadership, by us being more human and accepting that we can't be perfect, that we have the privilege of making choices. And the more we choose consciously to live intentionally, I think that would be a beautiful, beautiful world. So therefore, Kristen, I absolutely agree with your attitude. I think we can change this world. We can do it slowly but surely by leading by example, practicing extreme ownership, and modeling those behaviors that we would like to see in our employees, in the people around us, in our superiors. So, no, it is Kristen, you're an amazing woman. Wow.
Thank you.
Who do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, you have grown this far, but who will the new Kristen be in a year time, in 5 years time? What are your goals?
Oh, wow. I don't know, but one of my life models is a man named Paul Farmer, who's is one of the founders of a group called Partners in Health that believes in healthcare for all as a human right. And he just tirelessly throughout his life, which unfortunately ended earlier this year in a sudden death, held at all times that everything was possible if we worked together, and that there was no postcode on the planet that meant that you were worth less than somebody else. And his tireless belief in that has saved hundreds of thousands of lives, along with his partner, Dr. Kim and Ophelia Wall, and a lot of other people at Partners in Health. But I look at him as somebody that that kind of energy is what I want, is the like Alexander Hamilton energy of like, I write like I'm running out of time. But I also know how to stop and take breaks and pass off and build teams and do all those kind of things, which is more of what Dr. Farmer was able to do than Alex, because I definitely have that, like, I write like I'm running out of time. I work like I'm running out of time. And I feel like I'm always running out of time. And in some ways we are, but I have to remember that in a lot of ways we're not. And we move farther together. And so I hope that, we've got some tangible goals. We're going to write a book next year. I'd love to actually find a publisher for it and get it out there. I have some dream stages I'd like to take. Really love, for our podcast that we're, reformulating right now to really make an impact and get into the right people's hands. But more than anything, my hope someday is that I meet a total stranger who somehow, some idea I told somebody once on a podcast, in a personal relationship, on a TED Talk, that it helped them. That's it. That's what I want to do. I just want to help.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And there's no doubt that with that attitude, you will help people, like it or lump it. If people today gel with you here on our podcast and our YouTube video, where can they find you?
We are at Abbey Research, ABBEY Research, on every social, because we're not creative. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of them. And our website is argooddoctors.com.
That's beautiful. Abbey, where does the Abbey come from? I need to ask.
It's the Abbey Color and Chemical is the company that my dad bought in 91.
I see.
And so then we just, and they called it Abbey. They spelled it ABBEY. So it would be the very first company in the white pages. Because when they started it in 1960 something, white pages mattered.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness.
So
I was wondering about the name.
ABBEY. Yep. No, most of my life, people have called me Abbey or thought I was Abbey. I'm like, no, he just bought it. I was already Kristen. I was born in 1983 and he bought it in 91. So,
Priceless.
yeah.
Priceless, but that was already good marketing then. I remember those times.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, Kristen, you're an amazing woman. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show and for brainstorming with me towards maybe living more intentionally and maybe being a more effective leader. Many of your thoughts were worth their weight in gold if we truly can incorporate them into our daily lives as personal beings, regardless what roles you have got in your life, as well as in a business, again, regardless which roles you have got in that life. You can make so much difference. You have no idea. But you need to give yourself permission to do so. And you need to ask yourself the right questions. Now, that's beautiful. Kristen, thank you so much for coming on to my show.
Thank you. And
you guys out there, look after yourself, live with passion, and make this world a better place. Look after yourself. Bye.